This is another blind reaction, and I'm not sure exactly where this is going to be going. It says the American Jesus manifested separately from European Jesus.
Charlie Kirk's form of Christianity is a form of white supremacy by which I have a theory that in America there are
Let's just start this off immediately with I'm not going to like what this lady is saying. Continue.
two types of main Christianity. One worships Jesus, the other worships white supremacy. And
what an absolutely ignorant and remarkably stupid thing to say. No, there is not an American Jesus. There is not a European Jesus. There is the real Jesus of the Bible who was a Jew, not white supremacy. Anytime that people say white supremacy, it's like an immediate like, oh, they're not going to know what they're talking about, because while that does exist, it is extraordinarily rare. And her trying to mention Charlie Kirk as being a white supremacist by this implication is absolutely uneducated by any possible standard you can express. My goodness. Let's continue.
the reason why I can back this up is because I did my undergraduate thesis on the color of Jesus.
Oh, good. You wasted so much time to learn. He was a Middle Eastern Jew from the 1st century. He was brownish. You did an entire thesis on me saying a singular sentence. You wasted everything in college and still came out stupid. Sorry for being so direct in this one, but my goodness, when you lob accusations at a dead man, I am not going to treat you with any kind of respect because you deserve none of it. Let's continue.
Back when I was in the Bible Belt of northern Florida, which I had no idea what kind of racial dynamics and politics I was getting into at the time, but this will absolutely be a lecture. So if you want to buckle in and sit down for this, this is actually kind of interesting. My first point,
I really
though,
don't want to, but I have
to
for this.
The KKK, and I'm talking about the revival of the KKK, like post D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, created this revival of the KKK. And why I bring this up that is so important and necessary is because the KKK identified as Christians. And not just Christians, but they had three basic enemies.
They identified as Christians? That's actually not true. Some of them may have. Some of them could have claimed to be Christian. Hitler claimed that he was a kind of Christian while he rewrote the Ten Commandments and he created a false form of Jesus that he told everyone to worship. The term Christian, by a biblical definition, is a very important one, and anyone who has racism in their heart is not a Christian according to the biblical definition. So there's a historical definition, which is anyone who's associated with or claims to follow Christ in any kind of capacity. And then a biblical Christian is an adopted son of God who has been born again, who has been saved by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone, for the glory of God alone, one who loves his neighbor and does not have any kind of prejudice in his heart. This, what she is saying, every aspect of it, no one should listen to a single word that comes from her mouth.
Or like in their basic like manifesto. Number one, obviously, not surprisingly, Black people. Number two, Jewish people. The third, though, were Catholics. And the reason for Catholics, when I was diving further into like the reasoning about why it was Catholics, was because they identified Catholics as like too European. Like they were too affiliated with like Europeanness. And in this branch of white supremacy that the KKK has kind of manifested, which is a predominant ideology that obviously is found in the United States, is that being too European.
Did you just try to claim that KKK is a prevalent thing in the United States? Seriously?
Is not white enough, because whiteness is a separation, right? We even understand that in
European is the origin of white. Well, I really genuinely don't know how to continue this video.
History of like supremacist, fascist ideologies, right? When they were stripping buildings of like ornate
Define fascism for me real quick.
color and creating these like, communist fascist buildings of the simplicity, they were essentially trying
Fascist buildings. Yes, that building, I believe that they have a political ideology. The bricks are laid in such a way that I believe that they are going to be overbearing and try to suppress those who speak in opposition.
to separate Europe and create this kind of conformity So this stripping down is this form of supremacy culture that we know that has happened in Europe, that we can also see in the United States. But taking a step further, when we talk about the color of Christ, okay? When I was reading, there was number one, the book was called Color of Christ. The second book I read was American Jesus. Both of these
Oh, so neither of these are your ideas. This is simply that you read books and took them to be absolutely truth, and therefore you're teaching a video where you're reiterating and regurgitating absolute horse crap.
books were really supplemental to my research. And one of the really important things they were saying was that the American immigrants coming into America, who were becoming the first Americans, were in fact Protestants, and not just Protestants, but the specific brand of iconoclasts. Iconoclasts
No, iconoclasts is not a specific branch. The specific branch of Protestants was primarily Presbyterians, which is why the actual revolt, the revolution of our country, the British referred to that as the Presbyterian Revolt, okay? Our Revolutionary War was referred to them as the Presbyterian Revolt.
were essentially this wave of Protestantism that kind of came after like the Catholics, where they kind of started to see images of Jesus and other religious figures as idolatry. And so what they started doing was they started dismantling and destroying.
That is something that all Protestants hold to, is because that's what the second commandment says in the Bible, is to not make for yourself any graven images of anything in the heavens above, on the earth below, or in the seas beneath. So yes, for all of time, real Christians have been in opposition to idols and icons.
Them. If you actually see, like, there's a lot of history, I think, in Germany, where you actually can see this form of iconoclasm where like these busts were destroyed, right? We know that it was what was his name, Saint John of Damascus, I believe, who argued that the images of Jesus were not in fact idol worship, because they were representations of what we were worshiping. We weren't worshiping the idols themselves.
That is what every idolater has always said throughout all of time.
I believe it was John of Damascus. I have to double check on that. But
Doesn't matter who said that. That's what every idolater has always said throughout all of time with every idol that they've ever held and worshipped.
when we look at these other forms of images of Jesus, right, there were essentially no images of Jesus under these Protestant circles that were manifesting in America. And I know people can say, well, you know, what about the Catholics that were like on Spanish territory? Well, Spanish territory was not America yet. And that is also really important to make. But then, so Joseph Smith in the mid 1800s, right? This is the first idea of perhaps like images of Jesus that we might actually come to know, by which he claimed to have seen a white pillar of light. And a few years later, changed.
No, he claimed to see an angel of light, and now she is confusing Christianity and Mormonism. They are not even possibly close to the same thing when you have actual biblical definitions that this woman does not understand or comprehend.
The statement to say, actually, I saw Jesus, he was blonde hair and blue eyed. And this did, in fact, result in Mormon Christian groups creating.
Yep, nope, no such thing as a Mormon Christian. We're already at the end points of how long this video can go for, so you've lost every aspect of credibility that you could possibly hold. So, repent and trust in the real Jesus Christ. Stop being a liberal victim. Stop pretending that this is such a prevalent issue. And how dare you say that Charlie Kirk was racist, that he was a white supremacist. Repent.